The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a metal ocean. Thousands of alien beings filled the curved seats that rose up in circles around the central floor. Their voices mixed together in a sound like rushing water. But Commander, Lee could feel the tension in the air. She sat at the small human table, her hands flat on the cold metal surface. Next to her, Admiral Kwan looked calm, but Lee knew him well enough to see the tight line around his eyes. The human delegation was tiny compared to the others. Most species had dozens of representatives. Humans had 5 people total. Lee sometimes wondered if that made them look weak or if it showed they were confident. Today, she was about to find out. The Supreme Chancellor stood at the center of the hall. The being was 12 feet tall and made of what looked like living crystal. When it moved, light bounced off its surface in rainbow patterns. Beautiful and terrible at the same time. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere, translated into perfect human speech by the Council's systems. "The hegemony has reached its final decision," the Chancellor said. The hall went completely quiet. Even the air recycling systems seemed to stop. "Humanity will surrender all colonies beyond your home system. Your military will be disbanded. Your species will accept protective custody under hegemony oversight." Lee felt her stomach drop. They had expected this, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. Around the hall, alien delegates leaned forward in their seats. Some looked sorry for the humans. Others seemed pleased. A few appeared bored, as if this was just another day of watching a weaker species get crushed. Admiral Kwan stood up slowly. His uniform was simple compared to the flowing robes and energy suits worn by other delegates, but something about the way he carried himself made every eye turn to him. The Crystal Chancellor tilted its head, waiting. "The human government rejects these terms," Kwan said. His voice carried clearly through the massive hall. "We offer a counter-proposal." A sound like breaking glass came from the Chancellor. Lee realized it was laughter. Around the hall, delegates began talking among themselves. The translator systems created a buzzing mix of languages that hurt to listen to. "Humans," the Chancellor said, "you control 17 worlds. The hegemony controls over 4,000. Your combined fleet has 800 ships, we have 50,000. What possible counterproposal could you make?" Captain Park stood up from his seat. Lee had served with Park for 6 years and had never seen him look nervous. Today was no different. His dark eyes were steady as he looked up at the towering alien. "Single combat," Park said. "One ship against one ship. Winner takes all." The hall exploded in noise. Delegates jumped to their feet, their translator devices struggling to keep up with the flood of shocked voices. Some aliens were laughing. Others seemed angry. A few looked genuinely confused, as if they had not heard correctly. Commander Choi, who sat on Lee's other side, watched the alien reactions carefully. Choi had studied alien cultures for 15 years and could read their body language better than most humans. She leaned close to Lee's ear. "They think we have lost our minds," Choi whispered. The Chancellor raised one crystal arm and the hall slowly grew quiet again. When it spoke, its voice carried a tone that the translators rendered as amusement mixed with disbelief. "You wish to stake your entire species on a single ship battle?" "That is correct," Admiral Kwan said. "Against our greatest dreadnought." "Yes." The Chancellor's crystal body flickered with internal light. "What ship do you propose to send against the Eternal Dominion?" Park stepped forward. "The Indomitable." More laughter echoed through the hall. Lee did not blame them. She had seen the intelligence reports on the Hegemony flagship. The Eternal Dominion was 5 kilometers long and carried enough weapons to destroy small moons. Its shields had never been broken in 300 years of warfare. By comparison, the Indomitable was barely 300 meters from nose to tail. Dr. Kim, who had been silent throughout the entire session, finally looked up from the data pad she had been studying. She was a small woman with gray streaks in her black hair, and most of the alien delegates probably had not even noticed her. But when she caught Park's eye and gave the smallest nod, Lee saw something change in his expression. "Your Indomitable," the Chancellor said, "is classified as a heavy corvette in our intelligence files. "Are you certain this is the vessel you wish to send?" "We are certain," Park replied. The hall filled with whispered conversations. Lee caught fragments through the translators. Words like suicide and madness came through clearly. Some delegates seemed to think the humans were trying to create a distraction while they planned something else. Others believed humanity had simply given up and chosen an honorable death over slavery. None of them understood. Lee was not sure. She understood either, but she trusted Park and she trusted Dr. Kim. The quiet scientist had been working on classified projects for 3 years. When asked about her research, Kim would only say it involved alternative approaches to space combat. The Chancellor consulted with other hegemony leaders for several minutes. Their conversation was not translated, but Lee could see them gesturing toward the human delegation. Finally, the Chancellor turned back to face the hall. "The hegemony accepts this challenge," it announced. "The battle will take place in 30 days in the Kepler neutral zone. 1 ship versus 1 ship as requested. When your vessel is destroyed, humanity will accept the original terms without further negotiation." "Agreed," Admiral Kwan said immediately. As the council session ended, delegates began filing out of the Great Hall. Many stopped to stare at the human table as they passed. Some looked sad, as if they were viewing condemned prisoners. Others seemed excited, probably looking forward to watching the spectacle. Lee stood up with the rest of the human delegation. Her legs felt weak, and she realized she had been holding her breath for most of the last hour. As they walked toward the exit, she fell into step beside Dr. Kim. "Doctor," she said quietly, "please tell me we have a plan." Kim looked up at her with eyes that held no fear, only determination. "We have a plan, Commander. The question is whether the universe is ready for it." Outside the council hall, Captain Park gathered the human delegation in a circle. The corridor was empty except for them, but he kept his voice low anyway. "You all know what this means," he said. "In 30 days, we either save humanity or die, trying. Are there any questions?" Nobody spoke. They all understood the stakes. "Then let us go home and get to work," Park said. "We have a ship to prepare." The Indomitable hung in Earth's orbital shipyard like a metal needle against the stars. Captain Park walked through its corridors with Chief Engineer Han beside him, listening to the sounds of constant work. Welding sparks flew from open panels, and crew members hurried past carrying equipment that Park did not recognize. "How much longer?" Park asked. Han wiped sweat from his forehead with a dirty cloth. He had been working 18-hour days for 3 weeks, and it showed. Dark circles ringed his eyes, and his uniform was stained with grease and metal shavings. "Dr. Kim says 2 more days for the main systems," Han replied. "But Captain, I have to be honest. Half of what we are installing does not make sense to me. The power requirements alone should tear the ship apart." Park nodded. He had the same concerns, but Dr. Kim insisted the modifications would work. The scientist had shown him equations and diagrams that might as well have been written in alien languages. When Park asked for simpler explanations, Kim would just say, "Trust me." They passed through the ship's research bay where Dr. Kim worked with a small team of specialists. The bay had been completely rebuilt to house equipment that hummed with strange energy. Cables snaked across the floor, connecting machines that Park could not identify. In the center of it all, Kim stood before a holographic display showing what looked like a 3-dimensional maze of light. "Doctor," Park called. Kim turned toward them. Her hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and she wore a lab coat over her uniform. She looked tired but focused, like a person solving the most important puzzle of her life. "Captain," she said, "we are on schedule. The quantum field generators are installed and calibrated. The space-time manipulation array is ready for testing." Han shook his head. "Doctor, with respect, those words do not mean anything to me. What exactly are we doing to my ship?" Kim smiled for the first time in weeks. "We are teaching it to think outside the box, Chief. Way outside." Before Han could ask what that meant, Lieutenant Commander Yoon appeared in the doorway. The tactical officer looked as serious as always, but Park could see excitement in his eyes. "Captain," Yoon said, "the weapons teams are ready for the next drill. But I need to warn you. What we are practicing goes against everything I learned in military academy. Show me, Park said. They made their way to the ship's tactical center where crew members sat at stations surrounded by holographic displays. The screen showed the Eternal Dominion in perfect detail, rotating slowly so they could study every weapon port and shield generator. According to our intelligence, Yoon began, the enemy ship has 47 main weapon systems, 312 defensive turrets, and shield generators that can absorb the energy output of a small star. In a normal fight, we would last exactly 4 seconds. But this will not be a normal fight, Park said. No, sir, it will not. Yoon touched a control, and the holographic display changed. Now it showed both ships with strange curved lines connecting them. Dr. Kim's modifications will allow us to attack the enemy ship in ways they cannot defend against. But the timing has to be perfect. One mistake, and we are dead. Ensign Bay, the youngest officer on the ship, raised her hand. Sir, I have a question. Park nodded to her. Bay had only been out of the academy for 8 months, but she was smart and asked good questions. What if this does not work? She asked. What if Dr. Kim's theories are wrong? Are we really going to risk the entire human race on an untested technology? The tactical center went quiet. Everyone wanted to know the answer to that question, but nobody else had been brave enough to ask it. Park looked around at his crew, seeing fear and doubt in their faces. They were good people who had volunteered to die for humanity, but they deserved honesty. Ensign Bay, Park said, let me tell you something about humans. We have survived ice ages, diseases, wars, and disasters that should have killed us all. Do you know why we are still here? Because we are tough, Bay suggested. Because we adapt, Park corrected. When the world changes, we change with it. When the old ways do not work, we find new ways. That is what we do best. He turned to address the entire room. The hegemony thinks they know everything about us. They have studied our ships, our weapons, our tactics. They have calculated exactly how long we will last in battle. But they made one mistake. What mistake, sir? Asked one of the weapons technicians. They assumed we would fight the same way we always have, Park said. They do not understand that. Humans can reinvent everything when we need to, including the rules of physics. After the briefing, Park found himself alone with Dr. Kim in her lab. The scientist was making final adjustments to a device that looked like a crystal sphere surrounded by spinning metal rings. Doctor, Park said, my crew is scared. I am scared. Can you really do what you claim? Kim stopped working and looked at him. Her eyes were completely calm without a trace of doubt. Captain, what I am about to tell you must never leave this room, she said. 5 years ago, we captured an alien probe that had crashed on one of our outer colonies. Inside that probe, we found technology that worked on principles we had never seen before. Not better versions of what we already knew, but something completely different. She gestured to the spinning device. This is based on that alien technology, but we have improved it, made it do things its creators never imagined. The universe is not as solid as people think, Captain. Reality can be bent, twisted, changed, if you know how. And you know how. I know how, Kim confirmed. The question is whether our ship can survive the process. What we are attempting has never been tried before. We could save humanity, or we could tear a hole in space-time that destroys everything. Park felt cold despite the warm air in the lab. Those are quite extreme possibilities, Doctor. Yes, Kim agreed. But doing nothing means certain slavery for our entire species. At least this way we have a chance. Over the next 2 days, Park watched his crew prepare for the impossible. Chief Engineer Han and his teams worked around the clock to install Dr. Kim's modifications. Lieutenant Commander Yoon drilled the tactical teams on maneuvers that seemed designed to get them killed. Commander Choi monitored alien communication channels, reporting that the hegemony was treating the upcoming battle as entertainment rather than a real fight. They are taking bets, Choi reported during one briefing. The shortest odds are on how many seconds we will survive. Most are betting less than 10. Let them bet, Park said. It will make our victory more surprising. But privately he wondered, if they were flying toward certain death for nothing more than human pride. The Eternal Dominion was a mountain of weapons and armor that had never been defeated. The Indomitable was a tiny ship filled with experimental technology that might not work. On the last night before departure, Park walked through his ship one final time. In the engine room, Han was running final diagnostics on systems that glowed with strange energy. In the tactical center, Yoon was reviewing attack plans that read like science fiction. In her lab, Dr. Kim was making last-minute calculations on equations that hurt to look at. "Are we ready?" Park asked her. Kim looked up from her work. "As ready as we can be, Captain. Tomorrow we either make history or become history." Park nodded and headed for his quarters. In a few hours, they would depart for the battle that would decide humanity's fate. He tried to sleep, but his mind kept returning to the same question. How could one small ship defeat an enemy that had conquered half the galaxy? The answer, he hoped, was waiting in the Kepler neutral zone. The Kepler neutral zone was empty except for stars and the ships that had come to watch history unfold. Captain Park stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking at the main screen that showed dozens of alien vessels keeping their distance. They had come from across the galaxy to witness what everyone expected to be humanity's final defeat. "Contact bearing 047, reported the sensor operator. "It's big, Captain." The Eternal Dominion dropped out of hyperspace like a metal mountain appearing from nowhere. Park had seen the intelligence photos, but seeing the actual ship was different. It was 5 kilometers of weapons, armor, and power that could crack planets. Weapon ports covered its hull like deadly stars, and energy fields shimmered around it like heat waves. "My God," whispered Ensign Bay from her station. "It's enormous." Commander Choi was monitoring alien communications from her console. "Captain, the observation fleets are placing final bets. The hegemony ship is favored by odds of 3,000 to 1. "Good," Park said. "That means they are not taking us seriously." Lieutenant Commander Yoon checked his tactical display. "All weapons. Ready, Captain. Dr. Kim's modifications are online and stable. The crew is at battle stations." Park looked around his bridge. These people had volunteered to risk everything for humanity's freedom. He hoped their sacrifice would mean something. Dr. Kim sat at a console that had not existed on the ship a month ago. Cables ran from it to every major system, and holographic displays showed readings that only she understood. She looked calm, but Park could see tension in the way she held her shoulders. "Status, Doctor?" he asked. "All quantum field generators are online," Kim reported. "Space-time manipulation array is ready. Captain, once we begin this process, there is no going back. The ship will be committed to a course of action that cannot be stopped." "I understand," Park said. He turned to the communications officer. "Open a channel to the Eternal Dominion." The main screen split to show the alien ship, alongside the image of its captain. The being was tall and covered in blue scales that reflected light like metal. Its 4 eyes studied Park with what the translator rendered as professional respect. "Human Captain," the alien said. "I am Commander Vrak of the Eternal Dominion. You have shown courage by coming here. But this battle has only one possible outcome. Surrender now and your crew will be treated with honor." "I appreciate the offer, Commander Vrak," Park replied, "but we did not come here to surrender." The alien captain's expression changed to what might have been sadness. "Then you have come here to die. I will make it quick." The communication ended. Park looked at his crew one final time. "All hands. This is the captain," he announced over the ship's intercom. "Today we fight not just for ourselves, but for every human who will ever be born. We fight for the right to determine our own future. We fight for freedom." He paused, then added, "Whatever happens in the next hour, you have already made me proud. Now let us show the galaxy what humans can do." The Eternal Dominion began moving toward them, its massive bulk accelerating with surprising speed. Weapon systems across its hull started charging with energy that made space itself glow. "They are powering up everything," Yoon reported. "Plasma, cannons, particle beams, gravity disruptors, they are not taking any chances." "Range?" Park asked. 200,000 kilometers in closing." Park knew that the alien ship could destroy them from that distance, but Commander Vrak was being careful. He wanted to be close enough to ensure there would be no escape, no last-minute tricks. 100,000 kilometers, the sensor operator called out. The first weapons fire came like artificial lightning. Beams of energy that could melt steel struck the space where the Indomitable had been a moment before. Park's ship twisted away from the attack with movements that seemed impossible for something its size. Evasive maneuvers, Park ordered. Keep us moving. Chief Engineer Han's voice came over the intercom from the engine room. Captain, the modified engines are performing beyond specifications. We can outrun anything they fire at us, but we cannot do it forever. More weapons fire filled space around them. The alien ship was using a pattern attack, trying to predict where the Indomitable would move next. Each shot came closer than the last. They are learning our flight patterns, Yoon warned. We need to change tactics. Park knew their ship could not win by running forever. They had to fight back, but their conventional weapons would barely scratch the enemy's shields. It was time to see if Dr. Kim's modifications actually worked. Doctor, Park said, are you ready to try something new? Kim's hands moved across her control panel like a pianist playing a complex song. Beginning quantum field alignment, she reported. Captain, what we are about to attempt will change how both ships interact with normal space. The crew should be prepared for unusual sensations. Define unusual, Park asked. They might feel like they are in several places at once. Before Park could ask what that meant, the space around both ships began to change. It started as a slight shimmer, like looking through water. Then reality itself seemed to bend and twist. The alien weapons fire that had been getting closer suddenly went wild. Beams that should have hit the Indomitable passed through empty space, even though the ship appeared to be directly in their path. On the main screen, the Eternal Dominion looked the same, but something about it was different. It seemed to flicker, as if Park was seeing multiple versions of the ship at the same time. What is happening? Ensign Bay asked, her voice tight with fear. Dr. Kim never looked up from her controls. We are no longer operating under normal physics, she said calmly. Our ship exists in several dimensional states at once. Their weapons cannot target something that is not entirely in their reality. The alien captain's voice came over the communications channel, but his words sounded strange, as if he was speaking from underwater. Human ship, what have you done? Our sensors show you in multiple locations simultaneously. We are still here, Commander Vrak, Park replied. We are just here in a way you did not expect. The Eternal Dominion changed tactics, firing wider area weapons that should have been impossible to avoid. But even these seem to pass around the Indomitable like water flowing around a rock. Their captain is getting frustrated, Commander, Choi reported. He is using progressively more powerful weapons. Let him, Park said. He turned to Yoon. Time to show them what we can do. Target their shield generators. But Captain, our weapons cannot penetrate their armor. They can if the armor is not entirely in the same dimension as the weapons, Dr. Kim said. Fire when ready, Lieutenant Commander. The Indomitable fired its main guns. The energy beams looked normal, but when they reached the alien ship, something impossible happened. Instead of striking the shields, the weapons seemed to pass through the enemy hull as if it was not there, then exploded inside the ship. Alarms began sounding aboard the Eternal Dominion. Its captain's voice came over the channel again, but now it carried panic. Impossible, how are you firing through our shields? Park looked at Dr. Kim, who was monitoring readings that showed impossible energy patterns. Doctor, what exactly are we doing to them? We are not destroying their ship, Captain, Kim replied. We are making their ship destroy itself. Their own systems cannot tell what is real anymore. On the screen, the massive alien vessel was beginning to lose power. Its weapons went silent and its shields flickered out of existence. The ship was still intact, but it was no longer a threat. This is not over, Commander Vrak transmitted. The hegemony has thousands of ships like this one. But they do not have thousands of ships like this one, Park replied, looking around his bridge at the crew who had just accomplished the impossible. The observation fleets were already transmitting news of the battle across the galaxy. Humanity had won, but Park knew this was just the beginning. The Indomitable moved closer to the crippled Eternal Dominion, and Captain Park could see the confusion spreading through the alien observation fleets. Ships that had come to watch humanity's defeat were now witnessing something that should not have been possible. "Status report," Park ordered. Chief Engineer Han's voice came from the engine room, sounding amazed. "Captain, all systems are stable. The modifications are working better than Dr. Kim predicted. We are using only 60% of available power." Dr. Kim looked up from her console with satisfaction. "The quantum field is holding steady. We can maintain this state for several more hours if needed." On the main screen, the Eternal Dominion drifted helplessly. Its massive hull was intact, but internal systems were failing throughout the ship. Lights flickered on and off, and pieces of debris floated away from open airlocks. Lieutenant Commander Yoon studied his tactical display. "The enemy ship is completely disabled. Their weapons are offline, shields are down, and life support is operating at minimum levels." "Are the crew members alive?" Park asked. Commander Choi monitored the alien communications. "Yes, but they are reporting strange effects. Some say they can see through walls. Others claim they are in multiple rooms at the same time." Dr. Kim nodded. "Expected side effects of quantum field exposure. They will recover once we shut down the field, but the experience will stay with them." Park had to make a decision. The battle was won, but he could destroy the alien ship completely if he wanted to. The Eternal Dominion was helpless, its crew at his mercy. "Open a channel to Commander Vrak," Park ordered. The alien captain's image appeared on screen, but something was wrong with the transmission. Vrak seemed to flicker between different positions and his voice echoed strangely. "Human captain," Vrak said. "What have you done to my ship? My crew reports impossible things. They see realities that should not exist." "Your crew is experiencing the universe as it really is," Park replied. "Most beings only see one small piece of reality. We have shown them the bigger picture." "This is not natural. You are using weapons that violate the basic laws of physics, Doctor." Kim leaned forward. "Commander Vrak, there are no laws of physics, only descriptions of what we have observed. When we observe new things, we must write new descriptions." The alien captain's four eyes focused on Kim with something that looked like fear. "What are you?" "We are humans," Park answered, "and we think differently than you do." Throughout the observation fleets, alien ships were beginning to move. Some were backing away from the battle zone as fast as their engines could carry them. Others were moving closer, their crews desperate to understand what they had witnessed. "Captain, Commander," Choi reported. "We are receiving communication requests from 17 different species. They all want to know the same thing. How did we do it?" "Tell them we will be happy to explain later," Park said. "Right now, we need to finish this." He turned back to the main screen where Commander Vrak waited. The alien captain had stopped, flickering, but his image still seemed somehow unreal, as if he was not entirely present. "Commander Vrak, do you surrender?" There was a long pause. Park could imagine the alien captain trying to understand what had happened to his supposedly invincible ship. Finally, Vrak spoke. "I surrender," he said quietly. "But I do not understand how you defeated us." "You lost because you thought you knew everything," Park replied. "You studied our weapons, our ships, our tactics, but you never studied how we think." The Eternal Dominion transmitted its formal surrender, and Dr. Kim began powering down the quantum field generators. As the strange energy faded, space around both ships returned to normal. The alien ship stopped flickering and became solid again, but its systems remained disabled. Ensign Bay was monitoring long-range communications. "Captain, news of our victory is spreading across the galaxy. The Hegemony Council is calling emergency meetings. Some of their member species are already withdrawing from their alliance." Park was not surprised. The Hegemony had stayed together because they believed they were invincible. Now that belief was shattered. "Sir," Chief Engineer Han called from his station, "we are receiving a priority transmission from Earth." "Put it through." Admiral Kwan's face appeared on screen. Behind him, Park could see the flags of every human colony world. "Captain Park, I have just received confirmation from the Galactic Council. The Hegemony has agreed to honor the terms of single combat. All human worlds are now free and independent. The bridge crew cheered, but Park held up a hand for silence. He knew this was just the beginning. What about the other species? Park asked. The ones the hegemony controls? That is a more complicated question, Quan replied. Several species have already declared independence and requested human protection. Others are still deciding what to do. The galaxy is changing, Captain, and we are at the center of it. Dr. Kim spoke up from her console. Admiral, with your permission, I would like to share our technology with any species that wants to learn. The universe is big enough for everyone to think differently. Approved, Doctor, but be careful. Power like this could be dangerous in the wrong hands. The communication ended, and Park looked around his bridge. His crew had just changed the course of galactic history, but he could see uncertainty in their faces. What happens now, Captain? Asked Ensign Bay. Now we go home, Park said, and then we figure out what kind of galaxy we want to live in. The Indomitable began moving away from the disabled Eternal Dominion, but Park ordered the navigation officer to maintain a safe distance. The alien ship was helpless, but its crew needed medical attention after their exposure to quantum field effects. Commander Choi, contact the hegemony medical ships. Tell them their people need treatment for quantum displacement syndrome. What is quantum displacement syndrome? Choi asked. Dr. Kim answered without looking up from her console. It is what happens when conscious beings see too much reality at once. They will recover, but they will never see the universe the same way again. Over the next few hours, Park watched as rescue ships arrived to help the Eternal Dominion. The alien crews worked carefully, as if they expected the disabled ship to explode at any moment. None of them understood what had happened, and that made them afraid. Lieutenant Commander Yoon approached Park with a question that had been bothering him. Captain, could we have destroyed their ship completely if we had wanted to? Park looked at Dr. Kim, who considered the question seriously. Yes, she said finally, but destruction was never the goal. We wanted to show them that their assumptions about reality were wrong. Sometimes the best way to win a fight is to make your enemy question everything they thought they knew. As the Indomitable prepared to jump to hyperspace, Park took one last look at the Eternal Dominion. The massive ship was being towed by its own rescue vessels, but it would never be the same. Its crew had seen beyond the edge of their understanding, and that experience would spread throughout the hegemony. Course laid in for Earth, reported the navigation officer. Take us home, Park ordered. The stars stretched into lines as the Indomitable entered hyperspace, carrying news of humanity's impossible victory to a galaxy that would never be the same again. 3 months after the battle in the Kepler zone, Dr. Kim stood in the medical bay of the Indomitable, watching alien doctors work with human scientists to treat the crew of the Eternal Dominion. The effects of quantum field exposure were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. How are they doing? Captain Park asked as he joined her. Kim gestured toward a blue-scaled being who sat quietly in a medical chair, staring at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. Physically, they are fine. Mentally, they are struggling to understand what happened to them. They saw reality from multiple perspectives at once, and now they cannot forget that experience. The alien patient looked up at Kim with large, dark eyes. Through the universal translator, his voice carried a tone of wonder mixed with fear. Doctor, he said, I can still see the spaces between atoms. I can feel the quantum fields that hold matter together. How do I make it stop? You do not make it stop, Kim replied gently. You learn to live with expanded awareness. Your people will help you adapt. Commander Lee had arrived on the Indomitable 2 weeks ago to oversee the medical program. She stood nearby, reading reports from alien doctors across the galaxy. Dr. Kim, Lee said, we are receiving similar reports from every species in the former hegemony. Beings who were exposed to quantum field effects are experiencing what their doctors call reality expansion syndrome. They see connections between things that should not be connected. Park frowned. Is that dangerous? Not dangerous, Kim said, but life-changing. Once you understand that reality is more flexible than it appears, you cannot go back to thinking it is solid and unchanging. The main door to the medical bay opened and Admiral Kwan entered with several alien delegates. Park recognized them as representatives from species that had recently declared independence from the hegemony. "Captain Park," Kwan said, "I would like you to meet Ambassador Zahn of the Mediant Republic and Chancellor Trix of the Constructor Alliance." The Mediant was a tall, thin being with silver skin that reflected light like a mirror. The Constructor looked more familiar, roughly human-shaped, but covered in what appeared to be living metal. "Captain," Ambassador Zahn said, "my people have studied the reports of your battle. We wish to understand how you changed the fundamental nature of space-time itself." Chancellor Trix was more direct. "We want this technology for ourselves. What? Will you trade for it?" Dr. Kim stepped forward before Park could answer. "Ambassador Chancellor, we are not trading this technology. We are sharing it with anyone who wants to learn." "For free?" Chancellor Trix asked suspiciously. "For free," Kim confirmed. "Knowledge belongs to everyone. The universe is big enough for all of us to think differently." Over the following weeks, the Indomitable became an unlikely center of galactic politics. Ships from dozens of species arrived, daily their crews eager to understand humanity's breakthrough. Some came as students wanting to learn. Others came as potential enemies hoping to steal or copy human technology. Ensign Bay, who had been promoted to lieutenant after the battle, coordinated meetings between human scientists and alien researchers. She found the work fascinating but exhausting. "Dr. Kim," she said during one of their daily briefings, "the Valorian delegation is asking questions about weaponizing quantum field technology. Should I be concerned?" Kim nodded. "Very concerned. What we discovered could be turned into weapons that would make the old hegemony fleet look harmless. We must be careful about who we teach and how much we share." Chief Engineer Han had been working with alien engineers to install modified quantum field generators on their ships. Most of the early attempts failed spectacularly. "The problem," Han explained to Park, "is that different species think differently. Our technology works because it matches how human minds process reality. Alien minds might need different approaches." Lieutenant Commander Yoon had been assigned to work with former hegemony military officers who wanted to understand human tactical thinking. He found the experience challenging. "Captain," Yoon reported, "these beings have been fighting wars the same way for thousands of years. They cannot understand how we won by changing the rules instead of following them." The breakthrough came when Dr. Kim began working with the medical team, treating quantum field exposure victims. She realized that the aliens who had been affected by the battle were developing new ways of thinking. "They are adapting," Kim explained to Park during one of their evening meetings. "The exposure forced their minds to expand, and now they can understand concepts that were impossible for them before." Park was concerned about the implications. "Are we changing these beings against their will?" "We are showing them possibilities they never knew existed," Kim replied. "What they do with that knowledge is their choice." The political situation in the galaxy was changing rapidly. The hegemony had officially dissolved, with member species either declaring independence or forming smaller alliances based on shared interests rather than military dominance. Commander Choi monitored communications between former hegemony worlds. "Captain, some species are asking for human protection. They fear that other aggressive civilizations will try to conquer them now that the hegemony is gone. And others are forming their own alliances to oppose us," Admiral Kwan added during a secure communication from Earth. "They see humanity as a new threat that must be contained." Park was not surprised. "What do you want us to do, Admiral?" "Continue sharing knowledge with anyone who wants to learn," Kwan replied. "But be ready to defend yourselves. The galaxy is more dangerous now than it was under the hegemony." Dr. Kim had been working on solving that problem. She believed the key was not to hoard human technology, but to help other species develop their own versions of quantum field manipulation. "Every intelligent species has its own way of understanding reality," she explained to a gathering of alien scientists. "Humans see quantum fields as flexible, because we are comfortable with uncertainty and change. Your species might see them differently. The mediant scientists, with their philosophical approach to existence, developed quantum field technology based on harmony and balance. The constructor engineers, focused on building and creating, designed systems that could literally construct new realities. Even the survivors from the Eternal Dominion began contributing to the research. Their exposure to human quantum fields had changed how their minds worked, and they could now see connections that other members of their species missed. Commander Vrak, who had been transferred to the Indomitable for extended medical treatment, became an unexpected ally. His experience during the battle had fundamentally changed his understanding of warfare and politics. "Captain Park," Vrak said during one of their conversations, "I spent my career believing that the strongest ship always wins. You showed me that intelligence matters more than strength." "What will you do now?" Park asked. "Return to my people and teach them what I have learned. The old ways of thinking led us to defeat. Perhaps new ways will lead to something better." 6 months after the battle, the Indomitable hosted a conference attended by representatives from over 200 species. The topic was not military, technology, or political alliances, but the fundamental nature of reality itself. Dr. Kim stood before the assembly, looking out at beings who represented every major form of intelligent life in the galaxy. "We gathered here because one human ship defeated a vessel that should have been invincible," she began. "But the real victory was not military, it was philosophical. We proved that reality is not fixed, that the universe can be understood and changed by conscious beings working together." Ambassador Zahn of the Mediant Republic asked the question that everyone was thinking. "What happens now? How do we use this knowledge?" Park stood up to answer. "We explore, we learn, we grow, and we do it together." He looked around the assembly at faces that represented thousands of different evolutionary paths, all united by curiosity about the universe they shared. The old galaxy was ruled by fear and force. The new galaxy will be built on knowledge and cooperation. That is humanity's gift to the universe, not better weapons, but better ways of thinking about what weapons are for. The conference ended with the signing of the Kepler Accords, an agreement that established principles for sharing advanced technologies and protecting species that chose not to participate in military conflicts. As the alien delegates departed, Park found himself alone on the observation deck with Dr. Kim. Through the transparent metal, they could see stars that now represented not potential threats, but potential friends. "Was it worth it?" Park asked. "All the risk, all the uncertainty?" Kim smiled. "Captain, we set out to save humanity from slavery. Instead, we freed an entire galaxy from the limits of its own thinking. I would say that was worth the risk." The Indomitable turned toward Earth, carrying news of a galaxy transformed. Behind them, ships from dozens of species spread out across space, each carrying new knowledge and new possibilities. The age of the hegemony was over. The age of cooperation had begun, and at the center of it all was the question that had started everything. How could the humans win with just one ship? The answer, as the galaxy was learning, was simple. They had not won with one ship. They had won with one idea, shared freely with anyone willing to learn. In a universe full of possibilities, that had been enough.